Welcome to the March 2025 Tidal Gardens YouTube show. Yeah, it took us a while to get this on the calendar. We've been so busy to start the year that it basically took me a couple of months to just even look at the calendars to schedule these things. So, yeah, we didn't have any YouTube shows for January or February to start the year. But hopefully, we will get a fair number in. Like, we usually do maybe like 10 to 12 YouTube shows a year. This year, we only have six scheduled, so it's a little bit more concentrated than before. Like usual, I like to start off with just a little sound check and all that stuff. Um, Funny thing, so I was on a podcast with Reef Dudes, and he had recently just got a brand new mixer for his setup, and that mixer had like this weird echo on my voice, and so it's even when you've done this for like years and years, there's always there's always a risk that you're gonna have like weird technical difficulties. So that is why I like to kind of like start these things off a little bit early. Uh, ask the ask the peanut gallery if I sound okay, if I need to turn up the volume, anything like that. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I sound all right. Um, yeah, all that good stuff. So funny thing also about technical difficulties. There was a really good chance that my face camera here thing wasn't going to work because for a while now, the capture card that this camera talks to, it's been acting really funky. Like I'll plug it in, and sometimes it just does not get power, and I basically wiggle it, and it does get power sometimes. So I'm like, at any given time, this whole like face camera thing might just go off the rails. Funny thing, I was messing with it today. Okay, by the way, before I get into the I was messing with it part, we actually have multiple of these. That is how crazy this studio is. Like, what studio just has like backup capture cards? Anyway, we did. I swapped it out, and this other one was having the same trouble as the one that I was just using. So one thing that I noticed was like, you know what? I get it working, and then I move it off of like my mouse pad, which is like one of those big giant what looks like 36-inch mouse pads that you can like set a laptop on and everything. I moved it off of that mouse pad thing and onto the regular desk, and it loses power. And it occurred to me that I have a stainless steel desk, and maybe like some way somehow it's getting some kind of weird electrical issue because of the desk itself. And so if I take this thing and push it off onto the stainless steel portion of the desk rather than being on like the mouse pad, it could just lose power. The types of like gremlins that happen on these broadcasts, it's amazing that anything works. So anyway, you guys, that was the thing. What else is going on? Let's hop into chat real fast. Marvin Cologne is here. CEO Refresh, Queen Ble of Ghosting, Warhood. Philip Fess, how's it going, Philip? Yeah, it's been a while since the live show. That is true. Yeah, as I was mentioning early on, it's like this year has been very challenging to schedule stuff. Um, oh, that's interesting. Hopefully, this broadcast is still working. Uh, this My live preview thing just bombed out. So in chat, let me know if I'm still live because like on my screen here, like my little preview screen, it just went dead. So I could. All right, I am going to hit this button and we'll see what happens. Maybe. Maybe? Who knows? So, yeah, I have no idea what the heck YouTube Live. That is definitely not on my end. Okay, still live. That's promising. Yeah, like the preview screen just bombs out. Like, is Google just trying to like save money by like not showing me my live preview? Anyhow, uh, oh yeah, this is also new. We've been doing like a 4K broadcast for a little while now, so that is not new. What is new is I finally got fiber. The 1 year that we're scaling back on the YouTube live show live streaming stuff. I've been wanting this for 10 years at least. I've been like talking to like different like municipalities and stuff that are like putting in fiber, and because we are in a rural area, I knew that we were going to be the last people ever to get fiber. You know, my parents have it. Every one of the employees here has fiber, I think. All my friends have gigabit fiber. I was like the last person, and I'm the one that would use it the most. Finally, I do have fiber, and we are getting gig up, gig down, and so that should be a very stable data connection. So there's that. Let's see what else is going on. We've got a lot of different projects in the works that probably added a little bit to the whole experience here as far as like trying to get events actually scheduled. We're doing a massive update on the greenhouse. It's something that I've been wanting to do for probably over a decade. A lot of the layout in the greenhouse was stuff that was set up 20 years ago and made a ton of sense at the time, but now we know so much more about just how workflow happens, about how tank layouts are, what we really want. So, for example, we want one level of tanks at working height. We want sumps that we can fully service, meaning nothing living in the sump that would be a problem. So, for example, right now we have a lot of Rubbermaid stock tanks in the greenhouse, those 300-gallon Rubbermaids. Well, when you use 300-gallon Rubbermaids to house a lot of corals, uh, and it's basically at that same level as your filtration and everything, you can't really just drain everything and hose it out because there's fish, there's coral, lots of it probably, and a lot of just historical problematic stuff builds up down there and stays. So, going to a system that we really can service, and we went overboard on that even. So, not only can we completely hose out one of these 300-gallon stock tanks that's really just there to host all of our equipment and utilities, we can isolate tanks, fully empty those because it's like those are much more manageable. And if need be, we can actually detach it from the entire system, roll it outside, and power wash it if we wanted to. We could take individual tanks out and re-silicone them. I mean, it's like completely able to service every part of these systems. So I was thinking tomorrow, if I'm able to, I would like to go and film a building update for the greenhouse to kind of like show where we are now, because the guys have done like a great job, like really getting in there and updating those systems. It's taken months longer than I was hoping for, but kind of like taking our time with it and not just trying to get it done as fast as possible. That's really paid some major dividends because we had to put in like a lot of extra thought into it. And that is like a huge luxury to be able to work slowly and methodically. So anyway, that's something I'm excited about. Bahama Llama Coral, what's up, Remy? Yeah, it's like sorry I missed you at Reef Stock. I know that you no longer work for with the people at Reef Builders, so hopefully at some point in the future we'll be able to hang out again. And congrats on the new deal with Brightwell. That's very cool. Let's see, Diacanthus Reef posting some info for you guys. Thanks very much, Diacanthus. Let's see. Philip is wondering. Oh, hey, look. I am, I am, I'm late on my transition. I lost track of time. Okay. Boop. Let's see. Do you expect any changes on imported coral prices with the current economic climate? Um, I actually have no idea because I don't directly import. That is just one thing I've never done. One year we did have an import license. I didn't use it once. So that's something that I can probably ask my wholesale friends. But I mean, if there's tariffs and duties and whatever else, that's going to obviously reflect in coral prices. Uh, the major geographies that we're talking about would be Indonesia and Australia, mostly Indonesia, I believe. That's probably the most volume. So I mean, if you are hearing about like tariffs for specifically Indonesia and Australia, then yeah, I would expect prices to go up. The effect of that is kind of interesting because a lot of the exporters, I think Indo and Australia are pretty up to date, but there's some geographies that kind of aren't. And so they'll send products that basically cannot be sold. And in those cases, you can charge whatever the hell you want. It's not going to sell. So for example, like coming out of Fiji, like people made such a big deal about Fiji reopening for export. And people forgot that Fiji corals were never really that nice. There were like a few things that people really liked about Fiji, but it's not like, oh my gosh, it's like wall to wall, show stopping coral. It's like a handful of nice coral and a bunch of like stuff that might have been really interesting in like the late 80s, early 90s sort of thing. And so, like, the stuff that was coming in that I saw from Fiji at the wholesaler was like brown leather corals that were expensive. If you made those more expensive, I don't know if that changes the math at all. I can't imagine anybody was buying that stuff. What else was there? There were just a lot of really uninteresting stuff, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, but increasing the price tag on some of those imports, that sounds like a wholesaler problem, right? Because it's not like, oh, the prices are no longer competitive. I don't know if the prices would ever be competitive. Basically, those corals should never have been harvested. They should have been sent because the cost to send corals from those geographies to here with all the paperwork and fees and stuff, it's insane. So yeah, certain geographies, tariff, no tariff, who cares? But like Australia and Indo, a lot of those players, they're way more with it. Okay, Queen is asking, what is your opinion on Fluval Aquasky Light? I've never used it. So a lot of product stuff. We've used a lot of different devices, but there's a huge swath of the industry that we just don't have a ton of experience with. Fluval as a company, they're known more for freshwater. They're known for, I wouldn't say that like super duper cheap, but it's definitely more entry level. And so that's likely products that we wouldn't have a ton of experience with. Like we're really trending away from a lot of consumer grade stuff and more into industrial stuff. But I'm sure that there's a bunch of people that probably have experience with Fluval because Fluval is a very big brand. Okay, what else is going on? Um, let's see. Oh, I got a lift. I got a one of those JLG lifts, which is kind of ironic. Okay. What had happened was we ended up getting a safety grant, and part of that safety grant allowed us to buy this lift. And this lift was actually a suggestion by the inspector that came, because the safety grant was through the Bureau of Workers' Comp, and they probably did the math, figured out that it is better to give out these grants and avoid injury rather than paying out workers' comp's claims. And so, like all different types of businesses apply for these grants, and an inspector comes, reviews like your facility, reviews your needs. And I actually requested something a lot less ambitious than a personal lift, but this is what that inspector suggested. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's certainly more. That's certainly more than what I was looking for. And this isn't like a 100% everything is free thing. I actually have to pony up some money. So it did kind of escalate the cost of like my contribution to the grant process. But I couldn't say no because it was like it's a very good deal regardless, and there were all these different things that I could do with it. But this is really my first time really messing with one of these personal lifts. I'm going to be taking like a class to get certified and all that stuff. But when I was just like leafing through the manual, it's kind of funny. I'd say that like the user manual is 99% how not to die and 1% how to actually use the device. So it's like, yeah, I think you're supposed to take a class, learn it, the actual operations at the class, and not die, hopefully. So that's new. And I am looking forward to messing with that more because there are some projects that involve being high up in the air that were previously inaccessible to me, a person that is scared of heights. So, of course, I'm going to be the one in a high up basket, go figure. War Hood is asking, so this is a random question, but I always knew this place as an online coral company. True. Is there any place similar for fish and inverts? I live in an area without a saltwater store. I mean, most places would sell fish and inverts, I would think. It kind of depends on your price point too, because a lot of the people that are selling fish fall into two camps, and it's very, very polarizing. One is probably kind of discount, and you're gonna have hit or miss results with that. The other end of the spectrum is a week long quarantining process for your selected fish and stuff. And that is going to be substantially more expensive because essentially what you're paying for is the labor and materials that went into selecting that fish and getting it through quarantine. Not every fish does make it through quarantine. It is an enormous risk. So the folks that are doing that are, people like Elliot Lim at Marine Collectors and stuff like that. He will handpick a fish that you select. So if you need, like, for example, a copper band butterfly, he would pick out one in person. He wouldn't just buy some sketch one and try to get it through quarantine. He would handpick a good candidate, and it takes like 1 week, 2 weeks, and at that point, the fish is basically free, and you're paying for 2 weeks of labor. So that fish is going to be like $600 or something like that. But I always say, you can't save money on dead fish, and or coral for that matter. And the more rare and expensive fish that you have, the more risk there is of adding in the next fish. Because you could have gotten either lucky or through great practices a wonderful thriving tank, and your dream fish becomes available, and you put this new fish in, and it wipes out your whole tank with velvet. That sort of stuff can happen. So Yeah, and you can try to quarantine this stuff yourself, obviously. Uh, expect quite a few losses doing that. It just the whole fish game is very tricky. Like even a facility like Tidal Gardens that has some ability to do this, it is not pleasant. It's not fun. It's not easy. Uh, there's certainly many places that would be able to do it better than us, but it is kind of a specialized skill set and just the bandwidth to do it. It's very labor intensive. So yeah, there's that. Reef with me. What is one of your main takeaways from your visit to Diong Marine Life? Um, a couple of things. One is when you're dealing with that much on-site culturing of like phytoplankton and rotifers and things of that sort, it's how susceptible they are to like bacterial like fouling and spoilage. So it's like the extent that they go to do sterile technique. I have never seen anything like that stateside in this industry. I mean, so I don't know any wholesaler that does that. I don't know any retailer that does that. It's pretty serious business there. I mean, DeYoung Marine Life has been around for a very long time. They have what looks like enormous resources to do the job very well. Uh, it's further compounded by the fact that it's in the Netherlands. And okay, to put into perspective, uh, here in middle of nowhere, Ohio, I think 1,000 square feet to buy would be maybe like 100 grand, maybe something like that. Like for every 1,000 square feet, ballpark, right? Over in the Netherlands, I think every 1,000 square feet is like $1 million, and the electrical rates are several times more than what I spend. I pay about 6 cents per kilowatt hour. They might spend in the 30s or 50s, depending. There's a lot of instability because of the whole war situation there and like just energy in the EU in general. So a lot of what we do here in America at the industrial commercial level doesn't necessarily scale well in Europe, just because you can't pay for 200 radions without generating a lot of money for the things under those radions, right? So to see a facility like DeYoung, um, the amount of capital expenditure to put something like that together is insane. I mean, it only requires the biggest wholesaler in all of Europe, from what I understand. So it's yeah, the levels that they go to are very impressive. Ken Ward, man, mega jelly over that JLG lift. It's really pretty cool. I've messed with it just a little bit. Again, I'm gonna take the class, you guys. I just don't have the time just yet to do it. But I mean, it's a couple $100. Yeah, I'll get certified. But yeah, it seems like a really, really, really nice toy. Victor is asking, how's that crazy rare red plate coral? Any frags anytime soon? We have made one cut so far. One cut. So we went from one piece to two pieces. And knock on wood, fingers crossed, so far so good on that. It looked very good after cutting. I walked in one day, I noticed that it was cut. I mean, it's been on our to-do list, so it wasn't like a surprise somebody cut it. No, it's been on the list to get cut. Finally got cut. Took a look at it. Looks very good, and so we're gonna give it like a little bit of time, and we'll start to make some more cuts of it. I think that we'll start selling them once we have about 8 pieces. Joseph Leader, hey, from the UK. Love your videos. Never seen a live. Well, welcome, Joseph. I was just in the UK at the end of last year. Really enjoyed my time. Um, I was there for an event called Coral Freaks. over at Advanced Aquarium Consultancy. Hung out with a bunch of people in the UK. Um, very good time. Very good time. Would like to again someday. But right this second, like this year, uh, my travel schedule is empty and empty on purpose. Like I went to Reef Stock in Colorado, and literally for the rest of the year, I have nothing planned. And I kind of want to build up my reserves a little bit because like last year, believe it or not, I spent over 1 million American Express points on travel. You do the math on that, but 1 million points. It was excessive. David Mendoza. Hey, feels like it's been a while. It has. It has for sure. Um, yeah. We didn't do one towards the end of last year, and it took us 3 months to finally do one this year. So yeah, it's been a while. DK switched over to saltwater for the prettier and more diverse fish, but now it's all about corals, and fish are just a nutrient source and pest deterrent. Believe it or not, DK, that is a very common progression. A lot of times the fish are what gets people into saltwater, and coral and inverts are what keeps people in saltwater. I don't know what it is, but it seems that fish in general, they tend to lose people's interest pretty quickly. You'll notice that there's not very many people that have fish only, or fish only with live rock tanks. It's not very common. Whereas like the mixed reef, ubiquitous, right? Or even the nanos, like nobody starts like a 5, 6 gallon nano or pico and it's like, oh, I did it for the fish. No, you probably did it for like an invert of some sort. Fish fam link, show some love, like the video, subscribe. Thanks. Jay Royce, best custom tank build you've used for your new facility's farm tanks. Um, I would say our latest round has been our best ones. I mean, you kind of go through this progression of learning as you go with like the different builds, right? And it is kind of like this Goldilocks thing where like these tanks here were great, but they were a little bit too shallow. These tanks over here, great, but a little bit too deep and not long enough or something like that. The latest batch, oop, I kicked my camera. The latest batch that we did, I really liked because they're 10 feet long, 4 feet wide, and the best thing about it is their depth because it is at just the right depth. I think they're about like 20. Let's call it 20 inches. All right, and it's really important because we're using 3/4 inch glass, and so when you tell a custom builder, I want 20 inches. If you're using 3/4 inch glass, the Eurobrace and the bottom of the tank, that eats up 1.5 inches already. And then you're losing maybe another inch, 1.5 inches for air because you don't have like the water level hitting the bottom of your Eurobrace, right? So now what was 20 inches is now closer to 18. And that water volume at 18 inches has a lot of nice benefits. Your racks can be taller, so fish can swim underneath. Fish and inverts can get underneath there because like stuff will want to grow on the bottom of your frag plugs that sit down into whatever. Um, the height also gives you the ability to have like ripping strong current going over the top of it and not smashing into corals and stuff. A lot of like versatility. And the deeper your aquarium, your fish just behave differently. They are way more calm and stuff. So I appreciate that. Who is the tank builder? So unfortunately, I think that the people that built those tanks are no longer doing it. I think they retired. It was Bob and Karen at Exotic Reefs. Another place that we got tanks from previously were the people that did tanks for Top Shelf. That's Derek over at Ocean Life Aquariums. And previous to that, we had tanks made by Reef Savvy. Any of those are going to be fine. You're going to see differences in price point. You're going to see differences in timetable. So have fun with that. But I mean, at that point, anybody should be able to deliver something pretty good. We don't have any custom tanks by who's that other one? Planet Aquariums in Texas, but we do have some, I guess like standard tanks that they had made. We just bought them locally at a store here. So we have two of them made by Planet. We have one tank that was custom, but not custom for me. It was custom for somebody else, and then I bought it used from that person. That was made by Miracles Aquarium, and that's from Canada. Which might not be a good idea now because of tariffs. But yeah, that's a very nice tank as well. I mean, anytime you're getting into like 3/4 inch custom glass tanks, they're all going to be slightly different. They're all going to be pretty darn good. And they're all going to be really expensive. Yeah. There's no way around that. They're going to be really expensive. What's the name of this rare plate? It is, I think it's, I forget the company name, but it's called like an Insanity plate. It's more, I would say, pink, a pinkish red, and it has like very bright green stripes. So it's like red/pink and green stripes. We've got Aqua H in the UK now in September. It was a really good show last year. Very cool. Very cool. Let's see. The Lido Junior. Do lepto plate. I'm assuming you're talking about Leptoceras. Um, no, not usually. When I think of Leptoceras, I think encrusting. Trying to think if any of our leptos have plated. No, I don't think. I can't think of anyone. NZR, Olympic Offshore Reefer. Can I ask, once you get the desired level of phosphate, would you take out the RowaPhos? Um, so I'm not a huge fan of a lot of like those granular ferric oxide media. My worry with using those has always been that it strips out quite a lot more than just phosphate. In particular, it goes after all manner of trace elements. And so you might see a decline in the health of like things like some soft corals and stuff. So I would remove as much of that stuff as I possibly could. We've used GFO here for years and years and years, and I've always been looking for like a better alternative. Lately, we've been using live bacteria, mainly as a food source for corals, but we've seen a lot of benefits with like phosphate reduction. Um, so to answer your question directly, yes, I would remove it. Uh, but yeah, but in general, I'm kind of like biased against products like that. They work, but they come with some snags of their own. I guess everything does to some degree. Bacteria is definitely not perfect either. The Lido Junior. I keep seeing Hydnophora on the website, and they look cool, but there's no care video for them. It's kind of been on our list for a while to do a video on Hydnophora. Um, I will. I will. I think the issue that we were having is there's not very many varieties, and not very many varieties that we have. So that video would either have to be pretty short and to the point, or very boring to look at, because you're just gonna see the same coral for like 15 minutes straight. And I just didn't think it was particularly compelling, but I understand that like the information is more important to get out there than to have a pretty and compelling video for entertainment purposes. Philip, I've got a Diablo Diaceras, TCK Insanity, and Insane Rainbow. Love the plates. I think it's the TCK Insanity plate. I think it's the same thing. Yeah, yeah. Reef Theory. I have a torch that's dying and bailing polyps. Didn't see any brown jelly disease, but not sure. Better to remove it to protect other Euphyllia and Fimbriophilia just in case, or leave it to see if it comes back. If it's already been dying, it's probably a little too late. Um, the worry is always that it is something like brown jelly, and that can kind of like spread. So that's kind of the worry. But if you're not seeing anything that's the matter just yet, I wouldn't worry too much because if like the process of you removing something could spread it. You know, you're trying to do like the right responsible thing, but you know, just like handling coral, especially coral that are dying from something like brown jelly, um, you could risk that act as the thing that spreads it. So if it's already gonzo, um, fingers crossed that your cleanup crew and your microfauna have kind of like eaten through all that flesh and just kind of contained the infection. That'd be great. But yeah, that's always tricky because yeah, brown jelly disease with hammers, torches, and frog spawn, not a lot of fun. J. Royce, thanks Dan. We'll be looking towards a 1,000 gallon plus custom tank. Much appreciated info. Yeah, 1,000's a lot. It's a lot of work. And you really want to go with somebody that has built these things before at that size. And if I was you, when it comes to just designing the thing, I would go for like the most overbuilt thing ever. A lot of times people kind of they side with what's good enough. And unfortunately, when it comes to 1,000 gallon custom builds, the only thing that's gonna be good enough is you go crazy because the alternative is yeah, it can go poorly. It's a saying that I've been saying for a while now, but it's like overbuilt is a matter of opinion, underbuilt is a matter of fact. Joseph Leader, I am a CNC machinist. Do you know of any issues having 316L stainless inside of a reef aquarium? Yeah, it rusts. Yeah. Unfortunately, stainless steel is not the correct material to use in and around our tanks. It always people always say like stainless doesn't rust. It rusts a lot. I can rust 316L overnight. That is how quickly that will rust. We use it for stuff like our bag staplers because that's food grade. And it does like wipe clean, but I would never have it like in the aquarium. If you want metal in the aquarium, you're using grade 2 titanium. That's the stuff you probably want. So there's different grades of titanium, and so this is for the folks out there that don't know. There's different grades of titanium. It is not a one, two is better than one, three is better than two, sort of thing, all the way up to like grade 5. Okay, it's not like that. They just have different mixes, and I think that the mix for marine use is grade 2. So if you wanted to go shopping around for, not sure why you're using stainless steel inside of an aquarium, but if there is a titanium counterpart, that's what you want. Case in point, the screws on Abyss are grade 2 titanium. The impeller, the whole darn impeller of one of their pumps, grade 2 titanium. Okay, Greg Sproles. I need some help. My 40-gallon all-in-one is very healthy, but on the back side of the rocks, in the dark areas, I have an infestation of hydroids extending from the rocks. Is there a known cause? Okay. All right, so these are two questions, it seems. Okay, so let me handle the first one first. Um, I have an infestation of hydroids extending from the rocks. Yeah, you'll get that. I mean, dark areas, you'll have non-light loving things growing back there. I mean, I guess like how bad are hydroids really? But if you wanted to, I mean, you can probably get in there and physically remove them. I don't know of too many things that are going to really get in there and eat them for you. Is there a known cause for brown jelly disease on torches? Uh, Growing sentiment of some combination of bacteria and ciliates, perhaps. Is there a tried and true method to keep it under control? Yeah, you're not going to like it. It's probably antibiotics. That works really well. Um, if you wanted to do a lot of prophylactic dipping and stuff that has antiseptic qualities, that could be a thing too. So, sponsor of the channel, Reefroids has a potassium salt mix dip called Reef Primer that tends to work nicely for these types of things. Philip, thank you. Thanks to you and Ben for helping me recently troubleshoot scalemia death in my tank. Things seem to be better and stable since discontinuing target feeding. Yeah, good. I'm glad. Sometimes in our efforts to do stuff better, turns out that it was only like hopeful, and sometimes there could be like negative consequences even to something like feeding coral. That's oftentimes like why like I think that certain corals have to be fed. A lot of them don't, and there are some possible downsides to it. And okay, so and yes, I was worried it would strip out more than just phosphate, but wanted to hear from it. Yeah, it definitely strips out more than just phosphate. Uh, David Moritz. Okay. Any interest in posting scientific names in conjunction with the trade names? I feel it's a path to advancing the hobby. Maybe. Um, so the thing is, there's a lot of movement sometimes when it comes to taxonomy, and it's slow on the uptake. And so, like things like, for example, to this day, people call certain corals acan lords. They really haven't been acans since like 2016 or something like that. They've been micromuso for a while. Most things that were acans are not acans. Things like acan Banki, not an acan. We were just talking about scolies. Scolies, not scalemia. Those those are homophilia, and so are what used to be acan Bankies, also homophilia. And so, and by the way, though these things are designations that are like years and years and years old, and the hobby doesn't catch up. Now the problem is if you're hoping that retailers are the thing that's gonna push the thing, you might be a little disappointed because retailers, including Tidal Gardens, we are in the business of selling corals. We're not coral taxonomists. Most people in this industry, guys, don't have any biological background at all, right? They might have been literally mowing lawns and they decided to start propagating corals in their basement. And that's it, right? So there's just not a lot of like culture to be scientifically accurate. We're not in like the public aquarium industry where there is a culture of using not just like the scientific names but actively avoiding common names, and common names meaning like saying even like a scroll coral or a meat coral or something like that. They there's a push to use scientific names there. But if you're looking for like the hobby as an industry approaching it, that's going to be tougher. It's gonna be tougher because I think that at the end of the day for us, it's like we need to show people what it is that they're looking for. So if they're looking for a Scully, I want to show them a Scully and have them buy it from us. So that's going to kind of be the rub. So I think that if there is change to be made in the industry, it's probably going to have to come from the hobbyist end, where the hobbyist is looking for Homophilia australis. Jay Royce, overkill. I agree. You are the perfect person to ask. Thank you again. Yeah, we do some overkill projects here. If you're looking for overkill, I'm really good at spending other people's money. Really good at it. I'm a bad influence. I'm an enabler. Alex Chen. I have some 316 stainless in my aquarium for years and it's still fine. Maybe just lucky. Yeah, I'd say so. I can. Yeah, I can rust the heck out of stainless. It happens all the time here. Joseph Leader. I can machine marine grade titanium. Thank you, Than. Yeah, and the other thing is like if something is rusting in your tank, that's problematic, like big time problematic. Like we do regular audits of stuff because there's certain things that just look wrong, and oftentimes the source of that is a device that's rusting. Um, Wiz AW. I just ordered a Red Sea Reef Dose 4 to use your complete reef care system. Okay, already can tell you I've never used it. Is this something you have any advice for or anything I should know? Literally know nothing. Follow the directions, I guess. It's probably fine. Shane Montgomery. As a grass mower that grows coral in their basement, I feel called out. You're not alone. You're not alone. But it's anybody. Like there's a bunch of people that start this as a side hustle. I started this as a side hustle. I was doing something completely different 20 years ago. Granted, I had a biology background 20 years ago, so I guess never mind. Never mind. Lost the plot. But yeah, no, there's very little barrier to entry into this industry, and it is kind of funny. I was hanging out this past weekend with David Lemus, and if you don't know who the heck that is, he used to work at Top Shelf Aquatics. If you look at some of their older videos when he used to work there, he's like the host of some of their videos. And so he came and visited from Texas with his girlfriend Stephanie, Queen of Reef, if you know who that is. And he was talking about how like sometimes he goes to like a work function with Stephanie, who's a lawyer, and like there's nobody for him to talk to because it's all a bunch of lawyers, except in one of these places there was like the fish maintenance guy that happened to like do the tank maintenance for like the office aquarium there, and it was like finally like somebody to talk to. There's a because going back to my point of there's like this low bar to entry, right? There's people like David that have like this very long, like 20-year career in marine and worked at like a very prestigious like coral farm and Top Shelf and all that stuff, right? And just some dude that takes care of tanks. Now that dude might be amazing, right? Or that dude could just have no clue what's going on. And in this particular story, that dude had no clue what was going on. And Dave was like, back to square one. I have nobody to talk to. Is this guy and myself, we're on different like planes of existence. Like our conversations don't even like match like at all. Fidel Frasco. How do I go about dosing? Okay, I'm assuming you meant calc, not kale, via dosing pump. And what's the best way to determine the evaporation rate? Okay, so Fidel, assuming that you're talking about calc, what I would do is I would make the calc solution. Probably start off in like a 5 gallon bucket. That's a pretty safe bet. And literally, I would just play with the dosing pump and be like, okay, let's start off like slow and low, right? And then just like see how much you're still topping up and just play it by ear and do testing. That's really the only way that you're going to be able to tell because everybody's tank is going to be different on the uptake. Because like even if your evaporation is such and such, you might not necessarily want to blast your tank with calc if you don't have a lot of consumption of calcium carbonate by your corals. So it really is it's kind of cooking to taste, really, right? So you're gonna just see how this stuff reacts, test your calcium and alkalinity, um, and you can kind of just piece it together from there. Like for instance, our systems, in addition to doing lots of kalkwasser, we are doing quite a bit of work with calcium reactors, and then still dosing the alkalinity part of 2-part. So a lot. Reefability app, $49.99. Thank you so much. Always amazed by the pristine health of your corals. Thank you. It's not always perfect. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. But right this second, things are doing pretty good. I'm happy. I'm enjoying it while it lasts. Love hearing about your new projects in your facility. I'm sure they'll bring incredible benefits to your reef system. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for the super chat. Yes. And one thing that I really am trying to push is that a lot of these systems, again, are not only are intended to benefit the critters that we're trying to keep, but it's also to make the life of the people taking care of the tanks easier. Like the more organized that we can be, the more ergonomic that we can make the systems, the more likely that that sort of like care and husbandry and maintenance will actually happen, and just like reduce the wear and tear on like the staff on a daily basis. Like it goes a really long way, and so yeah. So in your own systems, I guess my point is, think about how you're going to take care of it, or think about how somebody is going to take care of it. Let's say, like I forget your name already, but the person that was looking to do the 1,000 gallon aquarium. If it's you, think really hard about how you're going to maintain that. And if you hire somebody, again, same calculus, because even if you hire somebody, there's a really good chance if you make it hard enough, the task will not get done properly. Okay. John Williams, do you sell clams? No. And how do you take care of them? So the person to ask there is John Bowie, B-U-I, from Clam Mania. He's been doing the clam thing for a very long time. He's a friend of mine. He's such a friend that he will not wholesale clams to me. But it does require a little bit of specialized care. He's going to make it sound way easier than it is because he's like very experienced with it. But when he starts to when you break down like what it takes to actually do clams well, like he does, it's pretty involved. Like for example, you really can't keep them with certain fish. You can't keep them with certain snails. Things like that. I mean, they can be very challenging. Like, for me, I look at them wrong, they die. DK, the first corals I ordered from you, I just assumed you were a dude with a frag tank in the basement. Hopefully not because of the poor quality of stuff that you received. Hey, for that green-based toadstool, do those tendrils get long or are they always close to the base? I was waiting to get the Japanese toadstool or some variant. I think the green-based toadstool, it kind of depends on your tank conditions, to be perfectly honest, but I don't think it's really known for having like long tentacles. Okay. The Japanese toadstool has longer tentacles. Some are like weeping willow varieties, and they have very long tentacles. So it kind of depends. Okay. Lee in it. Bought my first acro. Uh, it was extremely green on the live when I received. It was completely brown. 2 weeks and still brown. Do I have a chance of it coming back to green? Okay. So this is probably like a PSA when it comes to shopping for acros. No, so first of all, that is uncommon for a green acro to immediately brown. Okay. That is not one that I would expect. Usually it's like the multicolored guys that they will down color. But any stressful interaction in an acro, I would expect to have down colored. I was actually going to make a video at one point about the most disappointing coral you could ever order online, and it would be rare acros because the stress involved in shipping acros. Uh, there's actually a lot of DOA acro issues that happen. Like it is a very delicate coral, and it's very temperamental. So when you receive a coral, when you receive an acropora, I would expect it to be down colored. And whether or not it will recover coloration has a lot to do with the hobbyist. It is, again, your situation is a little bit different. I wouldn't expect it for green, but uh, there are pages and pages and threads and threads and threads of people discussing how to take care of acros to get peak coloration. And these are very lively discussions because it is so challenging to get peak coloration out of acros. That is already an advanced topic because most people that are acro keepers, their discussions are more along the lines of how do I keep this coral alive? Acros are so temperamental, they can be doing great one day and completely collapse. Like it could be growing, 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 and all of a sudden, boom, whole colony dead. So assuming that you're already past that and now your problems are coloration based, again, it's the entire problem solving gamut at that point. It is the lighting, it is the chemistry, it is the water flow, is there anything bothering it? Is there like a fish or some weird invert that's messing with it? Is there like an actual coral pest issue? Is it like an acro eating flatworm type bad? That's really bad. Is it bugs? Like certain ostracods and like red bugs and stuff like that, people tend to not like those, but that's not going to kill a colony. It might cause polyp extension issues and down color. So all of these things, right? So hopefully now that you got the coral in alive, that your system is good and healthy enough that it will regain color. Because once you kind of like fix the baseline issues, uh, it will start to grow and it will color better. But that whole peak coloration thing, that's tricky. Again, green should be green pretty quickly, but like some of the more exotic acros, things like a home wrecker, for example, uh, the peak coloration involves having like these bright fuchsia highlights, and it took us like years to for ours to like grow like that, to develop those colors. So advanced stuff, the most advanced stuff. John Williams, what are some great care tips for scolies? Um, scolies tend to be pretty solid for us. I think that the number one issue that we ever have with scolies is that sometimes they get maybe they don't get quite enough flow in our systems. Our systems tend to be lower flow, and as a result, there might be like detritus issues, things like that. But they tend to be one of the lower maintenance corals. I know that Philip Fess earlier in the comments, he was trying to feed them, and that was probably not going well. I mean, we fed them in the past, and I think that perhaps the key there is to feed less than you think that it needs. So, for example, this is years ago, back when like we could focus a little bit better on like individually feeding corals. But I think that I fed it like one pellet fauna marine LPS like 3 times a week, like one pellet. And I do remember like the health and, for lack of a better word, like the viscosity of that coral. Like it physically felt like thicker. Um, you know how like a normal big fleshy coral, it's basically the viscosity of the water around it. This one had like, it was like fat. Kind of cool. But perhaps, again, like more on the moderation conservative end when it comes to feeding. Lily in it, not bought from your site. It could still happen. Like anytime that you ship an acropora, it is the most stressful thing you can do for that poor thing. And acros are one of those corals that will 100% display their displeasure by either dying or turning brown. Jordan B. Had an outbreak of brown jelly killing hammers within a couple days. Your medication recommendation cured the tanks. Thanks. All good. It is no fun to deal with brown jelly. Like and it was. I know a lot of people want to do like a lot of aquaculture with torches, hammers, and stuff like that, and they can't because it takes so long for them to grow. Then an infection like this pops up, and I'm using infection loosely. I mean, it could be bacteria, it could be ciliates, it could be any number of things. It could be, who knows, some weird crustacean, but it's tearing through the flesh, and yeah, they would lose like a year's worth of growth like overnight. It's like, what do I do? So good that you got on top of it. It is no fun for sure. Jay Royce, it'll be me to maintain that 1,000 gallon plus tank. For sure, putting a ton of thought into the system. Will be implemented into a home remodel project. Just doing the. I'll be doing to put that tank into my library. Cool. So somebody was saying that like I should do consulting for big projects, and I'm like, that would involve me doing a lot of work. But no, I've been approached by like a couple of different companies that are on like the implementation side. So they are actually involved in actually building and installing these tanks and stuff like that. And they're like, you could do so much work on the front end to make everybody's life easier. You could actually help design the thing on the front end. Take your however much um, for those services, and by the time that we are talking, uh, we know that it's going to be good, and we can at that point talk more about the engineering and stuff, right? And I'm like, oh, it's possible, but I don't know. That sounds very time consuming too. But that has been on my radar. People have been telling me that for a couple years now. Joseph Leader, do you think that bounce mushrooms are a thing, or just regular mushrooms with light-induced tumors? Could be both. Could be both. I have been thinking about that because bounce mushrooms have kind of been a thing in a known quantity. What's weird is that there's bounce just about everything else too. And that wasn't as common before LED. And now I'm wondering, like, is there something to LED specifically causing bounce things? I have a folder on my in my like video library, and I think I'm just gonna like make a video about this down the road when I actually have a little bit more information in my head to share. But dozens of different types of corals that we have that are not mushrooms have these bounce things going on. And I have to think that it is light related, but is it because back when only T5 VHO and metal halide existed, um, was it because nobody back then had digital cameras or the internet in many cases? Like, I mean, I started this hobby in earnest as an adult, let's say, in like the early 90s, let's say. My first digital camera had a literal 3.5-inch floppy disk. It was like a Sony. Like nobody had digital cameras. Uh, Google didn't exist. Like these things might have been a thing in the industry for like a long time and just nobody knew. So it's kind of tough to trace it all the way back. But yeah, it is could very much be light related, but some of these bounce mushrooms, like the ones that are the most popular, I don't know, like a sun kiss or an OG or whatever, right? I haven't seen the non-bounce version of it. So it could be a thing. John Williams. My zoas are not spreading or growing. What am I doing wrong? My PO4 is a little high, but everything else is good. And 100 par Gen 3 Pro. What is likely happening in my guesstimation? There's two things that I would probably look at. One is on the nutrient end, is there some trace element that is lacking? Oftentimes, when something is completely locked up, it gets unlocked when you fix some trace parameter that had bottomed out. Uh, I keep on saying this when it comes to trace elements. I was really hoping that it was just um, snake oil, expensive water, but that's not the case. It really does make a difference. And like in our systems, that was the only thing that we had changed. And all of a sudden, corals that hadn't grown in years exploded. So I'm like, okay, that did something. The other thing specific to zoas is if they are too dirty, they will not grow. And I would be looking out for any kind of detritus buildup because like certain inverts will increase the amount of detritus buildup. And there's like these little dust shrimp. I forget what they're called. Tanacea. That's the genus name. I mispronounced it. Okay, try to look it up. Tanacea or something. These little tiny things that look like mini uh, mini mantis shrimp. They like to build these like tunnels of mucus and detritus right up against the flesh of coral, and that can cause it to recede, or at the very least stop growing in the case of zoas. So look out for that. Are you able to identify a Haddonii over a Gigantea on site? No, I can kind of tell that they're different, but I don't know one from the other. I haven't gotten a big carpet here in well over 5 years, maybe even 7 or 8 years. Have not done it. But I know that some, like when I go to like a wholesaler, it's like, okay, this is this type of carpet, this is this type of carpet, but I can't really tell which one's which. Fish Ventura. I use the KZ color system. Korallenzucht. Homewrecker seems to love it. Don't doubt it. I mean, the Germans do product development pretty well. Expensive, pretty good. I don't know if I would be able to do something like that on an industrial scale. Like that's a very expensive additive, a suite of additives at that point. I don't think I met them. I met probably every other German company when I was over there visiting in the Netherlands. There's a trade show, Vivarium, and I hung out with the entire German contingent, it seems. But I don't believe I met the guys over at that particular company. Jason Carpentier. I watched your Indophilia video and it's quite helpful. Thanks for that. Thank you for watching. Indophilia. Nice. Have you learned anything new about keeping Indophilia in the last couple of years that may help? No, not directly. I mean, to Indophilia's credit, it's a low drama coral. It's always done pretty darn good. And I don't know if there's anything new that makes it do that much better. John Williams, Reefroid spiked my NO3 out of control. Do you have that issue too? Typically not with NO3. Usually the knock on Reefroids is phosphate. A couple of our systems, a little higher in nitrate, but we don't feed a lot of Reefroids. The nice thing about Reefroids is you can scale it way back and still get a lot of benefit from it. So I don't know what your nitrate levels are, but try 1/4 of whatever it is you're feeding. I mean, a lot of foods, you can go very light on. It's fine. Um, One thing that we did start doing was like fiddling with bacteria as a food source. And the side benefit is it does reduce phosphate and to a lesser degree nitrate. And the product states that it is like very good for nitrate control, but maybe in really large quantities and maybe in a different application because it's not made for the aquarium hobby. It's made for like shrimp farms and stuff. For like real aquaculture, guys, real aquaculture. And the nice thing about that is it dovetails nicely with a product like Reefroids because you have like, so like for example, if I wanted to feed a lot of bacteria, I'm kind of capped out by how much nitrate and phosphate I have because bottoming out nitrate and phosphate is really bad, like way worse than having elevated levels of nitrate and phosphate. So the fact that Reefroids are most any food, but Reefroids, it's kind of known to be a little heavy-handed uh, because it does elevate those parameters. It I kind of am double duty feeding those corals, right? They're getting the benefits of the powdered food, and they're getting the benefit of the live bacteria. And at the end of the day, theoretically, the nitrate and phosphate would kind of, cancel each other out. But the coral, as far as their nutrition goes, would receive that much more nutrition. Theoretically, it's something I'm dabbling with. Do I recommend it for most hobbyists? No, I'm just saying. I'm just sharing. This is something that we're trying. Have you ever imported? No. Have you ever imported aquacultured scollies? No. I wonder how durable and how they grow. So, ironically, I've never imported aquacultured scollies. I do know that Monsoon Aquatics, they did a video where they were propagating them by cutting them. Uh, it takes like a really long time for them to turn back into circles. And so they're able to sort of do it because they're able to dedicate a large amount of space towards it. And so they can wait for them to regrow. And in their case, I believe that they said they feed the heck out of them, and it's working for them. Great. Uh, I think that the knock is always that they're not quite circles. Um, it's very funny. Like Monsoon of all people have actually been here before. Like three people from that company. They were doing like a tour of different stores in the U.S. and they came and visited me. So it was a very nice meeting. Um, we've actually cut Scullies just to see, and they're still alive. They're out in the greenhouse. They're still fun. They're fine. They're not round, but they're multiple, I guess. Philip, my Indo rainbow acanthophilia from you back in September is showing some subtle yellow and green lately. So beautiful. It was orange and blue originally. Awesome. It's always nice when stuff starts to color up. Occasionally, like we'll order kind of sight unseen from a wholesaler, and it shows up. It's gray. Looks nothing like the photos. Typical, right? And but this is not our first rodeo. Sometimes these things just take time. Again, it's like, and especially coming from like a wholesaler, that thing is probably fresh off the boat, stressed. Then it ships to me, double stressed. It could just be gray for a little while. And luckily, I think that one of them is already starting to come around. The other one's like still really upset, but one is starting to develop the coloration. So it's like we always recommend some degree of patience with this stuff because again, the shipping is pretty brutal on these guys. I've seen bounce chalices too. Yeah, we've seen bounce a whole lot of stuff. A whole lot of stuff. AAC owner said he saw mushrooms bouncing in the wild though. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Paul Hughes, owner of AAC. John Williams, do you recommend more mysis food rather than dry? I can just feed all the time, um, and thinking I should do a well-rounded diet, but I could be wrong. You are going to get the wildest deviations of opinions on this, okay? Elliot Marine Collectors. He is, I want to feed the whole real food as much as possible. So that would be like nori, fresh seaweed, uh, fresh clams that he will then like rinse and freeze, and the freshest mysis. He likes PE mysis, for example. And so it's like a lot of the natural stuff. Nothing powdered, no pellets. Other end of the spectrum, you have Laura Carlin over in the UK, and she does wholesale level coral farming, and all she feeds is flakes. That's it. And so like there's a lot of ways to do this successfully. If you're asking me personally what we do here, we like to do nori. We like to do frozen food. And we do frozen food mainly because there's like certain fish that will only eat frozen, for example, copper bands. Um, but and I guess we also feed a little bit of pellet with on automatic feeders, but we only have like a couple of automatic feeders. I think that in the future we're probably going to be putting more pellet on auto feeders on every system because I like it so much. But yeah, it's but yeah, I kind of feel the same way about like a well-rounded diet. So I get you. Delito Jr., don't some pallies need sand to build their tissue so bare bottoms could limit their growth? I wish that were true. Uh, no, you can grow pallies to deadly levels without substrate. Very possible. I think that what you might be thinking of is that they incorporate substrate into their flesh. They do. Is it required? Definitely not. Uh, Cnidacea? Yes, that's them. That's the dirt shrimp I was talking about earlier. Delito. I thought monsoon captive spawn and bred scolies from eggs. They're like frag plug size. Okay, so that is a different program, and I think that there's a few people that are attempting that. Um, so A, very challenging to do. B, it takes a long time to get a spawned scolie to marketable size. I think the going rate is like 4 years to get something that's like pretty small. Um, how many of you have been in the hobby for 4 years? Think about that time frame and think of like how many things can go wrong to small sensitive corals over the course of 4 years. Like how many would you start off with? And at the end of 4 years, how many would you still have to be marketable sized that would have to pay for 4 years of investment and labor and all of that stuff? That is a tricky proposition. Um, yeah, I don't know if anybody is really selling hordes of things like scolies that are captive spawned. I know there's like some folks that are working on the Cantophilia and stuff and Cyanarina and things like that. That's awesome. You're kind of losing me at 4 years. That's crazy. Having said that, there are other things that might not be 4 years. So what had spawned recently in my systems were hammers. So we have some gold hammers that recently spawned. And the reason why those took off was because Euphilia and Fimbriophilia, they don't. broadcast spawn like most corals. They are brooders. So when they release larvae, they're already like fertilized and everything. Obviously, they're larvae. And so they're already in a state where they can just attach to rock and start growing. And sure enough, in that one system, we started to get all these little babies starting to grow on the rocks. At first, I thought it was maybe like a Recordia mushroom or something that just blew off of its plug and ended up in a rock. But it's like, no. First of all, there shouldn't have been any Recordia. But secondly, it's like, no, then there's like a lot of them. And the more we looked, the more we saw. And it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, these things totally just spawned in our tank. So we've got that going on. Now, I think that spawning there might be much more of a thing. The other slower growing large polyp stonies, I think that's going to take a lot of investment. Kai, what are your experience with Orphic lights? Greetings from Germany. They're fine. I think that my biggest problem with Orphic right now is that mine are the previous generation controllers, and I think that the new controllers are better. Supposedly, like a lot of people think that the new Orphic controllers are better. Even some people that were wildly critical of Orphic seem to like it now. So I think it's fine. Like the lights have been reliable for us up to this point, and this point's been years, so that's good. Would I buy them again? Probably. They seem really good. Um, yeah, that's fine. I don't know if there's like a perfect light out there, to be perfectly honest. But once you're in that price point, they're all pretty darn good. What auto faders do you use, Eheim? And is it reliable? So far, so good. We use the ones that are battery operated. And so far, the thing I like about it is that there's no cords. Throw a couple of batteries in there, set the timer, plop it onto your Eurobrace. Because you have Eurobraces, right, you guys? You don't have rimless, you have Eurobraces. Or some way to mount the thing. And yeah, that's been nice. We liked it. Are those tanids which you suspected your mandarin fattened up on? If you're talking about the mandarin that was ridiculously fat, I think it was because it was egg bound, and not so much it was because it was eating. Yeah. Poor buddy. She died. I was hoping all my corals would spawn with a blood moon this week. So you know how I was telling people earlier on the stream how I was really hoping that like uh, that trace elements were some kind of gimmick, snake oil. I kind of thought moonlight was snake oil. Turns out it's not. Moonlight's really important. We turned on the moonlight feature recently, and practically immediately stuff started to spawn. It was like so obvious. And and talking with the people that do a lot of coral spawning, like Jamie Craggs and Rich Ross, you set your Ecotech Radiance or whatever has like a good moonlight control, and well, those guys are like they can predict it down to the day that those things will spawn. Like that is how good the moonlight settings are. And we're not trying to necessarily spawn coral. We happen to spawn coral, but the sort of things I want to spawn are like snails. I need snails. Lots and lots and lots and lots of Trocus, please and thank you. Ken Ward, what brand of pellet feeder? Eheim. And luckily, no controller is necessary. It's just a timer for them, and it's built in on the device. So don't have to worry about a lot of craziness. It's just set and forget and fill it up. But yeah, it's nice. It's just battery. Greg Reef Boy, any updates or new ideas for your original greenhouse where it all started? Love that place. It is undergoing a massive overhaul right now. It is so a lot of the stuff that we did for that building, it's like 20-year-old design. You know, it's stuff that made sense when I first built it, didn't know what I was doing. So much has changed since then, right? So much has changed. And I wasn't able to do any updates because of how many coral are there. We couldn't physically move that many coral, break down like half of these systems, rebuild it over the course of months, and then, like do that shuffle. But we finally were able to. And we've been doing that now for a little while. I actually hope to do an update video or at least film one tomorrow because I want to go over a lot like the plumbing design that we're doing and a lot of like the refinements that we were doing as far as like the layout goes, because these systems have gotten smaller but way more efficient, way easier to control, way easier to service, and they just look really clean and streamlined. I'm doing a couple things that's kind of experimental. Could be a terrible mistake. Don't know. We're gonna find out. But I'm super excited. And one of these systems is getting really close to being activated. So fingers crossed. Yeah, very exciting stuff. Very exciting indeed. Yeah, I can't wait. Like, I think that this is a project that's probably going to take all summer to do, like, to completely rebuild half the greenhouse, all the tanks in half the greenhouse. But man, is it going to be so much better. Like, everybody's asking, like, are you going to tear down the greenhouse? And the answer is no, because for sentimental value alone, no. But I do not want it to become like this albatross either. So I want to make it something that is a joy to work on and work in. And yeah, we're going pretty hard on this update, I gotta say. It's coming out well. One of the guys that's working on that, his name's Dana, one of the staff. He's the one that's like primarily doing all like the plumbing work and stuff. Excellent job. We had an earthquake in California and all my rock flowers spawned. It's pretty awesome. Okay, real quick. I have been remiss in saying my thank yous to the supporters of Tidal Gardens. So real quick, the two corporate sponsors are Polyp Lab and Alufab. So Polyp Lab, you're probably very well familiar with them. Reefroids, Reef Primer, we use their products a lot. Alufab is an Ohio company that has built the majority now of our aluminum stands, and a big part of that greenhouse update is possible because of a collaboration that we are working on with them. So yes, very, very, very thankful to our corporate sponsors, and also for people like yourselves. So right now, let's go over the YouTube members: Keith Holland, Mike Washington, Jonathan. Hold on, what's the full name? I am so sorry. Minus? Oh, weird. Okay, well, it's not going to show me your whole name, Jonathan, but it's Johnston. Philip Fest, Mark Baumgartner, Carlos Fernandez, Steven13, Mike Downey, Terry Kuhn, and Ohio Adventures, not Ventures. On the Patreon side, we have Elaine Martinassi, Alan Jackson, Ann Lewis, Brandy Camp, Chuck Admire, Darwin Provence, Greg Zimmerman, Harkins Aquatics, Jordan Marty, Keith Singer, Lisa Clow, Lacry Fine Art, Lynn Holt, Miss Mandy, Owens, Puddle Aquatics, Reef Theory, Scott Williams, Sue Hemmons, Thomas Tarrant, and Tim Garner. Huh. You know, Steven13 on the YouTube member side of the thing, he had sent an email and said he's the only one on here that is using like a username and not like a full name. And you know what? I'm gonna look this up because he actually asked, "Hey, on the your video overlays, could you actually use my full name?" And now that I think of like, I forgot his name. Chris Vining. Okay, there we go. So thank you, Steven13, aka Chris Vining. All right, got everybody taken care of. Thank you again. Thank you all so much. All right. War Hood. Also, I guess for chat and Tidal Gardens, do we have an opinion on other coral that I should keep with or around Zoa? I have a rock at the moment to do Zoa Garden, but I want more. Honestly, you could probably go in a lot of different directions. I mean, Zoas are not particularly super aggressive or anything like that. You could do a lot. I mean, wide open suggestions there. The Pack 2602. TG is the reason I have an Alufab standard on my tank. You know, it's funny. By the way, that's awesome. Alufab, hopefully you're listening. They know because they had approached me like long ago, and they're like, you had these issues with your previous stand, people. We fix all of that by doing X, Y, and Z. Would you be willing to give us a try? And I'm like, sure. And they're local Ohio. It's like, that's great. And the next time that I saw them, it was, I believe, at Reefapalooza or one of these shows. Maybe it was Aquashella, I forget. Maybe it was like an Aquashella. And their entire booth, like all of like the image assets on their graphics displays were from Tidal Gardens. Like it was their stands that they had done for us, but it was like from our farm. And then like they had some multimedia videos playing, and it's me talking about their stands. So they went really hard into the aquarium industry. And I have to say that like it must have worked out very nicely because um, I think that they're kind of like one of the main go-to people for aquarium stands if you wanted to, get something in aluminum. And they obviously they do a lot for like industry, but they are very committed to doing some R&D for this reef aquarium segment. They release like these decorative panels and stuff because not everybody wants like this aluminum skeleton in their living room. So like all kinds of stuff. So it's very cool to kind of see how that relationship has developed because I'm sure that like they went overnight from doing just mainly like factory type stuff to an entire segment of aquarium stuff. Very cool. Greg Reefboy, 9.99 support for your greenhouse. Thank you so much for the super chat. Believe it, I need it because we are repurposing the old tanks, but the amount that we are putting into new plumbing is absurd. Like, we've learned so much since the early days about how to do plumbing right. And oftentimes doing plumbing right involves expensive unions and type 1 PVC. That's expensive. And like specialized fittings, those are expensive. And into the whole thing to make it all like serviceable, to be able to turn off flow and drains and remove a tank from a system and leave everything else running. Expensive. So that $9.99, believe it, it's already going to get put to good use. The Lido. I want to use them for my next frag tank. They're very good. And I like the fact that they kind of have some baseline designs, right? There's a starting point. And if you wanted to do more custom stuff on top of that, absolutely possible. One thing that I will always recommend in all of these designs, pay the money, get the casters. The casters are so good. You will thank me later. You will never remember the upcharge for the casters. You will remember how the casters made your whole life easy that one time that you installed that tank. It's such a good upgrade. Philip, is there a coral you find hot right now? I know it seems like that Goniapora and plate corals have been the latest trend. Yeah, I would say that Goniapora and plate have been, and some rare acros, and rare meaning like kind of new to the market, but like things like Acropora speciosa and stuff. Um, yeah, those are always in very high demand, I would say. There's certain chalices that seem to be really hot. Uh, what else is interesting? Certain high-end mushrooms. Some there's like shroom room people, that are really looking for some cool mushrooms. There's an entire segment that I could do about like really cool coral but bad product. And there's certain acros that, once they're in your tank, doing great, wonderful pieces, gorgeous. But on the business end of things, they are slow growing, delicate, and don't ship well. So like while they're here, are doing super duper well. Red Dragon acros, Fire Dragon acros, Hawkins echinata are growing like weeds here. But in the past, not always guaranteed to do well with those, but they're doing so well, and they're giant. So already we're having trouble because we can't ship giant ones. We can't ship frags very well. Like it's such a delicate shipper, such a pain in the butt. So yeah, great coral, bad product. For the greenhouse, is it no reflights, only sunlight? Quite the opposite. It is less and less and less sunlight every year, more and more and more reflights every year. We live in Ohio, so the seasonality is not good for corals. Bobby Broadway, what is your take on Hydros Maven? Never used it. Looking forward to visiting TG later this year. Awesome. Um, I told this to the Hydros team. So they wanted to see if like they could even come over and to like walk through the whole thing, and like even like, give us one to test out and stuff. And I told them like very honestly, when it comes to controllers, we are not good. Like it is, we go through a lot of different controllers and they've never really worked out. Not to say that the Hydros is going to fall into that same camp, but the way that we do our workflow does not lend itself to a lot of automation in that way. And there's going to be a lot of user error that's going to occur. And uh, it might not be a great fit. And so, thankfully, they have not taken us up on, or they have not like come and done all that work and given us free product. Because I said, look, when it comes to automation, we're horrible. So yeah, and I haven't actually purchased one either to test out because automation in that way not high on our list. John Williams, I appreciate you, sir. I love the show. Keep them going. Uh, I got you on Super Chat next time. Appreciate your time and launch. Well, thank you for attending. Thank you for attending. Let's see. When you talk to them next, tell them to look into aluminum dog crates. Huge markup on those. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Um, yeah. The pack. Casters are freaking amazing. Yes, they are. In fact, anytime that we're given the opportunity to put casters on stuff, we're putting casters on stuff. Again, like, even if you're able just to use it one time, it's worth it. The Reef Garage, are they actually going to stop collecting acanthos and endophilias? Okay, so not being on the ground, I've heard varying opinions on acanthos and endophilias. Okay, I have heard that they've never really been legal. And then on the other hand, I have heard, no, it's cool, it checks out. It's possible that there's like a Wild West situation going on, and there's some squirrely activity, and it might be a very gray, not so legal area. I don't know. I'm not involved in import export. So I never really see like, the underpinnings of all that. If they stop collecting, it should have been stopped collecting 10 years ago. Like, I don't know if it's ever really been that legal. Does Tidal Gardens have hairy mushrooms? Occasionally, occasionally. So, okay, again, great coral, not great, not so great product. Mushrooms. They grow way slower than people give them credit for. A lot of soft corals grow slower than people give them credit for. So when it comes to mushrooms, we don't actually do a lot of active aquaculture of them. Uh, for whatever reason, our systems, maybe they're too clean. I don't know, but slow. So we have some here and there, usually from a wholesaler. So in room for improvement, room for improvement, because I know that a lot of people like mushrooms. They're very cool. Joseph, do you think it is clever with small scale operations to specialize in one or two species only, or do a little bit of everything? It's really totally up to you. Like, you could probably do well doing like a monoculture of something that people really want. And you have to be able to be, flexible to pivot into something else. But I'll tell you right now, if somebody wants to just like have a single thing, a single narrow focus, that I'm just going to grow amazeballs Goniopora and do it super well at scale, that'll do really well because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to buy that from you. Eventually, the market is going to get tired of everything because, we're all ADD to some degree, right? But yeah, but I think like a single species grower could just be like a great all around supply where I just know that, you know what, I know I know where to get this one very specific rare difficult thing and just grab that. I could see that working out. In the past, it might not have worked out very well, but now I could kind of see it. Um, a little bit of everything. You might be a situation where like, most things will do okay. There's a few things that'll struggle, and you kind of don't specialize, and you might not have everything available all the time, which can get squirrely. So I don't know. We grow a lot of a lot of stuff, but there's a few things that we would always like to do better at. And for those, I'm also considering myself just like setting up a monoculture just for those, just in case that there's some weird interaction that we just don't know about. We can control for it. Wiz, I feel like Blastomuster are totally underrated. Probably true. They haven't been hot for a while. Won't be surprised when they become the hot coral. I agree. Right now, believe it or not, this is the golden age of Blastomusa. The sort of stuff that you're able to get wild is insane. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that is coming in wild, they are Blastomusa wellsii, and for whatever reason, very delicate. The stuff did not used to be this delicate in the past, but they're delicate now. We're getting better with them, though. I have to say, for a while there, we were really struggling. we are less struggle busing now. We changed a few things, so hopefully those changes are manifesting in the success that we're seeing with Blastomusa. But we were gun shy for a long time when it came to Blastomusa Wellesley specifically. Bobby Broadway, love your honesty. Can't really do it any other way. I am way too, I don't know, uninvested to be lying. I'm like, heck am I lying for? Too hard to keep track of. Thank you for all you do and all the inspiration. Can't wait to meet you and your team. Well, thank you very much. Yes, yeah, I never quite understood the lying thing. Like, I, I really, real deal, like, I don't get it. I mean, some people just lie all the time. And I would find that super exhausting. Like, just to have to be that creative and just not telling the truth. That takes extra brain power. If you just told the truth, it's fine. John Williams, hit the like button, y'all. Thanks very much. Jay Royce, about to place an order, cool, and wanted to ask how close to the picture that comes up on the website is the cherry bomb tenuous. Okay. Very likely, very close. The problem is, I had this rant earlier in the stream. Uh, those high-end acroporas, the people that shop for high-end acroporas already know this. Okay? When you get this coral, you're going to be disappointed. Okay? Because the very fact of it being shipped to you is going to make it super pissed. Hopefully, it doesn't just die immediately. We have a DOA policy because of shipping related stress. But when it arrives, best believe it is not going to be peak coloration. It's going to be angry and down colored. Like tenuouses especially are going to be mad. Now, whether that thing takes on peak coloration is an entire whole other thing. Like there are highly experienced cost no object type hobbyists that deal with high end acros, and they struggle sometimes with getting peak coloration out of these things. So if this is your first rodeo with like some of these acros, yeah, what's gonna show up is not going to be super bright and glowing most of the time. I'm just saying. So, yeah, it's a whole thing. Okay, so you got a home wrecker from a month ago and it's doing fine. Okay, that's an amazing data point because that is one of the other ones that are tricky. So, how close is the cherry bomb tenuous? It's going to be pretty darn close. Like I have a lot of confidence in Becca's photography. For those of you who don't know, Becca's the media girl here. She takes all the photos. She's very good. Greg Reefboy recently saw something about you setting up a jellyfish aquarium smaller in size, or you maybe thinking about something on a larger scale. Okay, the jellyfish aquariums are not for jellyfish. They are for spawning of urchins specifically. I hauled those things back from Holland, Amsterdam. Um, Okay, so I guess technically, is it Holland? It's the Netherlands, okay? But most of the hauling of it happened in Holland, in Amsterdam, to the airport. But yeah, I had to hope and pray that they didn't break during transit in my luggage, because I want to grow sea urchins, and they have a pelagic phase for a few weeks where they float around and consume phytoplankton, and they have to be tumbled in a creasel tank, and that's what I bought them for. That's like project 9,000 number, way down the list right now. I got so many projects that I want to finish. But one day, I'm going to be collecting egg and sperm of urchins, throwing them into creasel tanks, feeding them, water changing, whatever. It's gonna be a whole thing. If you want an immediate satisfaction coral, grab a Scully. Yeah, Scullies are tough, usually. If I ever lie, I manage to unravel it all by myself within a very short time period. Yeah, I mean I don't get it. I mean I've got like some friends and family that they just habitually do it. I'm like, how are we related? I don't understand. Okay, that's why I like buying corals from horrible places. They always look better in my tank immediately. Oh, that's a take. Um, that's always like to me that's a huge risk. I always worry. I mean, well, I shouldn't worry because I we do take the perspective of you should not trust anybody's tanks. Like people always ask like should they just forego any kind of precautions because they're buying from me? I'm like, no. Why would you do that? Why would you trust anybody? This is your tank. Like in a perfect world, everybody would have the ability to do dipping and quarantine to get anything through your system. I mean, most things, unfortunately, a quick dip ain't gonna handle. Um, but the effort and the ability to do it over time does make a huge difference. Don't trust anybody, guys. What are you doing? People lie. People lie all the time about that. It's like, oh, our systems are pest free. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Maybe if they're empty. Oh, that would be a curious lie. If it's like, oh yeah, our systems don't have any pests because they don't actually have systems at all. They're just bringing it straight from a wholesaler and then shipping a bag to you. That'd be crazy. I don't know of anybody who does that, by the way, but that would be nuts. Geek Domo, hey fan, how are you? I have not caught one of your live streams in months. We didn't have a live stream in months. That's sort of on me. We didn't schedule any until like last week. How have you been? Missed you on Reef Dudes the other day. You missed me sounding very bad because of an audio issue. Been super busy, about to release a brand new reefing app. Very cool. The Lido Junior, is Celastria that different from Goniastria? Meh, different-ish. They all used to be Favia, so that's how different they are. People thought they used to be in the same thing. Now, Favia, going back to an earlier discussion about taxonomy, at one time Favia had 100 and something species, and at some point there was a great fracturing, and now Favia has 2 species, both of which are in the Caribbean, neither of which is legal to have in the hobby. So in that fracturing, you have Celastria and Goniastria being 2 of the new genera that came off of Favia. Most things I get from Tidal Gardens have blown up. I have a Miyagi Tort that I bought a year ago from TG and it's huge. Unfortunately, the other day it started STN. That sucks. Got some frags of it in my frag tent. Yeah, Acros. After all these years, still challenging. They can still surprise you. Doctor of Welsh Magic, just here for the coral porn in Wales, UK, so cannot purchase. Wales. Check out Eco Marines. Check out Charterhouse Aquatics. Check out Advanced Aquarium Consultancy. You guys have some decent options out there. Just out of curiosity. Okay, so I just assumed Wales, but how far is Wales from Essex? Pretty far. 5 hours. Well, 5 hours. 5 hours. Not horrific. Not horrific. Okay. So this show will actually be going on a little bit longer than most shows. Like most shows would be ending right about now, but I believe that we have 40 more corals to go through. So that should take another, give or take, 20 minutes. So if you guys have any last minute questions for me, now's the time. Um, like I said, I do plan on doing an update for the greenhouse shortly. What else is going on? I did a podcast with David, formerly of Top Shelf, and that'll take forever to edit. I ain't gonna lie. That's gonna be like maybe in a month you'll see that. But that was a very nice visit, and he has a ton of knowledge, and we were talking about like some really in the weeds stuff, because I think that's one thing that I actually like to do is to, it can kind of get repetitive on a lot of topics, but when you have somebody that has like that much experience, working like at shops at a high level, you can get into some like crazy deep stuff, and that's all about that. Um, what else? I don't know if you know, but uh, Ryan Batchelor, formerly of Bulk Reef Supply, started his new project called Serious Reefs. It's a subscription service. And I started to work with him making some coral related content. So I guess that's news too. Um, I don't know how a subscription model is going to work. Neither of us do. But one thing for sure, I think it's harder and harder and harder to find good information because for whatever reason, I think like search has gotten worse somehow. I don't know if you guys have felt that, but whenever I use Google, I don't get great results like I used to. Like Google always used to impress me by how bang on good their information was that they pull up. These days, I'm like, this is kind of isn't even on point. And then on top of that, it's like an ocean of AI generated slop. So I'm wondering, like, is the future, an authoritative source that you have to pay for? And whereas like search before, you'd pay through like, having to sit through ads and whatnot. But I just don't know. Okay. So anyway, let's see. Let's get back into the comments here real quick. In between Ireland and England. Okay, cool. Yep, that's pretty much what I saw. About 5 hours. That's what I saw on the map. Um, Geekdom. Luckily, we are having two frag fests in the next 3 weeks here in our town. Cool. Very cool. That ruby red Cinerina on your site looks full color density, but does it have the translucent bubbliness most have? Um, to some degree. It's not like the most translucent thing in the world because I think that like sometimes the translucentness of it might not be the best sign. It might have been bleaching ever so slightly. Not sure if okay. So Vested is asking. Not sure if you already talked about this, um, but how was your Serious Reefs interview? What did you think of all that? Um, I don't know what you're talking about exactly because I didn't do anything for Serious Reefs in that way yet. Um, I was thinking about like actually going and seeing the studio up in Minnesota and stuff like that. Obviously, I've been invited and we could shoot some stuff there. But right now, I'm just producing choral related content here. So do you have me confused with Elliot maybe? um, so yeah, no, eventually I'll go check out his stuff because like building out studios, it's fun. It's fun, and I'm curious to see like all the stuff that he's like putting together there. Ryan. The Lido, are oleophilia easy to care for? Yes, it's not a crow I've seen before. Yeah, yeah, very middle of the road LPS. Like anything that you would do for literally any other LPS is going to be fine for those guys. Oh, I watched a couple of his vids and it feels so odd not seeing him doing BRS. Yes, about the search, I now use AI for searching. It's way more accurate digging through the slop because it's AI. Ironic. Yeah, I'm like digging through AI slop with AI. ChatGPT is better. You know, for a lot of things, I found ChatGPT is better. Okay, perfect example. Okay, Google does Google Ads. Google, what used to be Google AdWords. Their information when you do a search on like how to do Google Ads um, is bad. Their documentation and tutorials are bad. The thing that's been most helpful is if I type in that same query into ChatGPT and it kicks out stuff that's immediately helpful. So Google's own uh, search about their own product is trash. Make it make sense, right? Philip Fest, how does one get invited to the Tidal Gardens Christmas party? That ain't happening, dude. Okay, so the Christmas party is you would think it would involve the employees here. It doesn't. So it's really just a close group of friends from high school. That's it. It's like that is like literally a high school friends and family get together. Um, okay, this is funny about like the employees thing. Me wanting to be a better boss was like thinking, okay, well, one of these days I would like to actually do something nice for the staff. Maybe we could do a thing here, where I would get it catered and, no like work. It'll be on the clock. People will get paid basically to have like a little pizza party of sorts, right? But then I was thinking, you know what? If I was already paying for this, I'm willing to bet that whatever it is that we do here is going to be worse than just letting people stay home that day. Like, no matter how nice Tidal Gardens is, no matter the fact that, it is a paid pizza party to attend, they would rather not attend it. So we don't do any of that stuff. Like, it is just purely, you know what? Get your work done within 40 hours, go home. That's it. Like, the less I can have people here, the better. And okay, this is like unrelated to the Christmas party part, but the barbecue that we did like 5 years ago, I get asked to this day about when I'm going to still do another barbecue. I have no plans to do that, another barbecue, but I think it's wildly hilarious that that is still like a major topic. Like, it must have been a very, very positive experience for people when they're still asking about it. Vested. I just saw a Gani episode thumbnail. Haven't become a member yet to watch. Yet assumed it was an interview. Ah, okay, yeah, not an interview. It's just me. Funny thing. Okay, my YouTube account is screwed up because do you remember when Google tried to do that Google Plus thing, and they tried to? Well, they didn't try. They made everybody sign up for that. Like they made you attach your Gmail and Google, whatever accounts, and your YouTube account and all that stuff to Google Plus. And then when Google Plus failed, they had to like do some other stuff. Okay, that process screwed up my YouTube. So there's like stuff that I cannot do on my Google account. I'm sorry, on my YouTube account. It's just broken. One of those things is I cannot join Serious Reefs. So like, I never even told Ryan this. I'll just tell the internet. But like, yeah, it's like the reason why I haven't like joined to even see my own videos or see anything else that he's worked on is because I literally can't join. It does like the button is grayed out, does not allow me to join. Yeah, that's hilarious. So I'm like literally a contributor to this thing, and I'm like, wow, hope it's good. Thanks, YouTube. Philip, it's okay. You wouldn't want me there. I'd probably ask too many questions. Okay, here's what's hilarious about that Christmas party. Ain't nobody care about the aquariums. Like nobody cares about the aquariums. It's like the entire party is upstairs. Nobody looks at the tanks downstairs at all. It is purely like a regular old get together. Joseph, I hate work meals. They are cringe every time. Yeah, and I think that also just like forcing any kind of social interaction is just kind of lame. Cause like, well, okay, maybe it's because we're all like antisocial and not pleasant people or something. But nobody here hangs out with each other. Like, it's not a thing. Blue Basin Aquatics. How many corals today? I think it's like 249. I think that's the magic number. Okay, Geek Domo. Homewrecker just came up on the screen. Man, if I knew it would live, I would grab one ASAP. Such a pretty acro. Yeah, it's always a risk when it comes to those high-end acros. And it's just not just the shipping is no fun for them. Acclimating to a new tank is no fun for them. They are super delicate as is. It took us like a year to get them to peak coloration, dibble dabbling with all sorts of stuff. Yeah, it's not for the the faint of heart, let's just say, when it comes to reef aquarium keeping. Next time I pick up corals on Friday, I'm just gonna bring some meats and fire up the grill. You know what's hilarious is like there's a grill right outside. One day, if I just see somebody grilling outside of my place, it's like, oh, I guess today's the day. Huh, that's interesting. So the Lido is saying, I struggle to keep frog spawn alive, but I can keep torch thriving. I would think the case is the same for them. The care is the same for them. Generally speaking, I would say that the torches are more challenging than frog spawn. I wonder what's wrong with the frog spawn. It's like that makes me think that something is actively eating them if they're doing that badly. Homewrecker is worth the risk. Just have to have the pocketbook for it. Go for it. Yeah, you know what's crazy about like Homewreckers and Walt Disney's is like their price point has remained high. Usually, fast growing SPS saturate and then they end up being like 20, $30. But Homewreckers and Walt Disney's do not. And my guess is because a lot of people are not having great success with high-end Acroporetennius. Yeah, I think a lot of times, people see, really good-looking stuff, and on the internet, meaning like, they see somebody's amazing Instagram account and all that stuff. But in practice, I think a lot of people struggle a lot, and so this is where I think that like when you're seeing a lot of like social media, it's like it makes it seem a lot easier than it is, and it's a lot more uh, snapshot in time also. Like people are going to show when their tank was doing the best, and it is entirely possible that that tank doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, even some of the stuff that we use as B-roll, it's like, you know what? Our tanks don't look like that. I mean, one bit of B-roll that I've used like 100 different times, our SPS show tank in that B-roll is empty. It's like when we first fired that thing up and turned the lights on, empty, nothing in it. And now it's like full of giant acros. Between that point of being completely empty to it is now, we have had to reset it basically twice because it had issues. So it's gotten fully grown out, died way back, or we had to like break everything apart. full colonies again, broke it down again, full colonies again. That's where we're at. So you just never know when it comes to acros. It is way more difficult than people think. And oftentimes you hear people say acros are not that difficult. And they're saying that at the point in time where everything is going fine. And it is fine. And it can turn very quickly. So whenever people come over for like visits, for like shopping or for picking up, and they see that tank, it's like, oh, your stuff is doing so well. And I'm like, I am enjoying it right now because there's no guarantee that this stuff is going to be okay later. So it's gorgeous right now. I'm enjoying it right now. Acros are tough. Yeah, so Geek Domo about the STNing thing. I have a tenuous that's fuzzy and growing like mad, a foot away from a Miyagi tort that's a year old, and that is a year old and is growing like crazy. Is now STNing. Um, I always worry about bacterial stuff like STNing and stuff. I always think the trigger to that sort of thing. My mind goes into like these like check off tiers, right? First problem, are there pests, right? Did it start with something like flatworms? Did it start with something like unlikely to be bugs? Maybe bugs. Um, is that like part of the equation? Second thing, is it do you have a heavy metal issue? Sometimes it's hard to diagnose that even when you're looking at ICP results, but I would immediately do like an audit of anything metal in your water and seeing if it's rusting. Third thing, and this kind of goes back to the ICP, but did something crash out? Did something just hit zero? And because the coral is not growing, the coral is dying, and you're running into an STN issue there. I would look at those three things. Interesting. So maybe I should try Tidal Gardens frog spawn. Um, I think I've only gotten imported non-tankerous. That could be a huge issue. A lot of stuff that's fresh from the ocean. I've been spoiled because like I haven't really shopped for Fimbriophilia in ages, ages, and I'm confident to say that I sell more to my wholesaler than of that type of coral certainly than I buy from him. It's like it's a it's 500 to 1 when it comes to like that sort of thing, right? I almost never buy hammers, torches, and frogspawn. And the stuff that I am selling is they're nice. I'm just saying they're really really nice. Super healthy right now. Again, enjoying it while it lasts, right? They're doing really well. Uh, Chivan, Seabrix, Cybrix. Sorry, I'm butchering your name. I already know I'm butchering your name. I'm sorry. How long should you wait before adding corals to a newly cycled aquarium with dry rock, LPS, SPS, and anemones? Okay. My opinion on this has changed quite a lot. Before, I'd be like, oh, take like 6 months and don't do anything. Right now, if I was to start a bare aquarium, I would fill it with as many corals as I can day one. And it's not just because I'm trying to sell you coral. The microfauna, the bacterial populations, and everything that come on coral is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Like the thing that you're really trying to do is get truly good live rock. There is no better truly good live rock than actual live coral. And if I was to start any system right now, I'd get tons of coral, just fill it day one. And that thing's gonna be nice. Apartment Reef. I think what the average hobbyist entering the hobby doesn't realize that the best case scenario grow out takes months of attendance in regards to the health of corals, but can flip on a dime. Can yeah, a lot can go wrong. Single piece of equipment can take the best system on the planet into a clotted mess of dead corals in hours. Yes, that's true, and that is why we do go pretty hard on some very expensive professional equipment because at scale, um, we really do just need that peace of mind. think this is the last coral, you guys. Gonna have to cut it off soon, but I will answer all the questions that I see real quick. TG Slime Time Acro is growing like a weed. Awesome. Great test coral before the home wrecker investment. There you go. Geek Doma has a Tidal Gardens frog spawn. It's doing amazing after 9 months. Fantastic. What percentage of your sales is selling wholesale? Very little. Very, very, very little. And I don't really sell wholesale. I sell to my importer slash wholesaler because he is local. It's eye-catching coral, guys. Not a big mystery, because they're the ones that are able to actually take the volumes that we're interested in. It's not like a store or somebody that has like a maintenance account. It's like they are an importer level group. They will fill a truck, sort of thing. Yeah, introducing corals right away. Coral also filter feeds. Yep. Corals are great for cycling a tank. I learned this lesson decades into my reef aquarium journey. Yeah, I heard from like Laura in the UK as well as Jake Adams, like, why don't you just cycle with corals? And it's like, first I really tried it. No, it's fantastic. Fantastic. Harkins, hello, sorry I'm late. It's over, dude. It is over, but welcome. Thanks for coming in. By the way, Harkins, I did see your photo of the blood moon. Very nice. Than, I'm using you everywhere on the web as an example of someone as well as Jake that says to load up your new tank. Wish that there's a clip of you saying this so I could point newbies at it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. There are clips. It's like mixed into like regular conversation. I don't have like a video on it, but yes, that's a thing. Just off the top of your head, what do you think is the oldest coral you have in your propagating? Oh my gosh, no idea. We started 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago. We've got some old stuff, old. Unfortunately, I think it's probably a Paleothella that I'm probably trying to kill. Sounds like I'm rewatching. Yeah, Harkins. And ironically, you stopped in right when the thing reset. So there's an entire 2 hours for you to rewatch. If you want to just zone out, put you to sleep. Alicia Flores just had to say, made my first order with you. I'm excited to get them. Thank you very much. Hopefully your transaction goes well and you like the corals. Thank you for sharing what you know with us. Great stream. All the best. Thank you for hanging out. A bit salty. Than, we have a real QB this year. Go Blue. Heck yes. I am so excited for college football. You have no idea. I'm not really into pro football because, you know, Cleveland Browns, but I'm all about my Michigan Wolverines. So Chris, you can put corals in an uncycled tank then? Yes, absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I know I am going to be chilling for a bit, and I'm going to do some filming tomorrow. So, again, thanks everybody for joining in, and I will see you next time. The entire schedule for the whole year is on the website, so check that out. Take care, you guys.